Hello, folks. How are you? Right. Brian Marisa is my name, and I'm a financial planner with SCI. I've been working in the financial planning industry for the past 10 years. Now, I'm just going to continue right off the bat where James left off so that we can be able to look at how do you go about dealing with your education funding needs for your children and the scale of the problem that is involved. Now, with me here, I've got a couple of figures, but I want to take on the example that James used. So, in his introduction, he explained that one of his elder sons, James, is taking on a university degree that would cost about 35,000 pula, no, 35,000 pounds. And that's 35,000 pounds, which translate to about half a million pula. So, what you have is the first instance that you have to realize when it comes to education planning and providing for your children is the fact that we've got different scenarios on how parents go about managing their education costs as part of their cash flows or expenses on their day-to-day living expenses. So you will find that the default position is always that people tend to just pay the school fees on demand without setting aside any funds for future expenses that are related to education costs. So you've got a scenario where someone can choose not to do anything and they borrow money to pay for school fees, or they pay the school fees on an ongoing basis out of their salary, or they save up and then use the savings to pay for the school fees. Now, that sounds like it's the same thing, but when it comes down to the figures, it's actually not the same thing. Because there are some problems that we have to deal with that make this a huge problem. And the biggest one is inflation. So I'm going to start off with James' example, where we were looking at a scenario where he says that right now he's looking forward to paying about half a million pula per year towards his son's education costs or tuition fees at university. Now, what that means is that if you go by the style of paying school fees on demand without ever saving for the future, in order for you to pay off half a million pula worth of fees per year, that would mean a commitment of close to 85,000 pula per month. Now, when you look at that, that becomes immediately a big problem. Because when you're looking at education planning, the rule of thumb is that you should always be using up to only 20% of your gross earnings towards your children's expenses. So now if you're using 20% and 85,000 pula is 20% of your earnings, that means you're looking at a salary of in excess of 600,000 pula. Now, how many parents are earning as much as 600,000 pula? So it becomes unaffordable immediately to be thinking of overseas education if you start paying school fees monthly depending on your salary and hoping that now when you get to university you'll be able to cater for those costs using your salary. So this is where a strategy is needed. And the strategies that we talk to parents about are being able to first allocate that 20% from your initial earnings that you make as a salary, and then find out how much that gives you. And then that carefully guides you now in terms of how you should be able to spend that money for current expenditure to where the children are currently going, as well as future expenditures to where you would want your children to go to. Not only does that help you also figure out what you can afford to be able to provide for your children, but it gives you an early chance to start making a plan B if you're going to have to at least supplement some of the money that you are able to save from your salary. So this is very important because the difference between not doing anything and saving up money towards the children's education is massive. So I'm looking at an example where after you look at the child's entire education cost, a parent who saves and invests money towards their children's costs, including a university, where the standard fees of university, as an example, is around 120,000 pula per year, will spend in total only about 500,000 pula. Now, if you compare that to a parent who is paying the school fees on demand, they will end up paying the amount of 2.5 million. So that's about 5 times more. So this is very important. So the scale of the problem is that you are eventually going to spend more money on providing education for your kids if you don't save up early and you pay on demand than you would if you'd pay on demand. So that is what you want to be solving, and that's what you want to be looking at. Thank you so much.